How you doing? What you see here is it's an artist's rendering. But this world we live in, wow. I tell you, it just isn't what you think. It really isn't. Technology and things that are coming. Some people claim we've been lied to for a long time. The truth is being hidden by our government. So all I can tell you right now is let's have a look.
But rather than bore you with all those statistics, I've got cooked up a real mixed bag here of different topics. I'll start from the beginning. Now, like I said, I worked 17 years at Groom Lake, S4, S2. It's in the Nellis Air Force Base area. I worked 17 years for the United States government as a geologist and aerospace engineer, as well as a structural engineer. Incidentally, I helped work on 13 deep underground military bases. I worked 11 years of the 17 years at Groom Lake. Groom Lake is quite the place. Up here I have different artifacts explaining some of them are alien metals that have been produced both on this planet and the confines of outer space that are now used in all stealth aircraft. All this has come from alien technology. First of all information dealing with alien or alien reproduced technology or alien reproduced vehicles or any other kinds of things well hidden from the American public. Right now there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. The public basically has been totally lied to.
Truth and lies.
We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases. It's got to stop. We must instill in our public officials, anybody that goes and does public service, they must tell us the truth. If they cannot do this, then they must be impeached.
This is like a puzzle. You start putting all these pieces together, and it's a changing world we live in. Technology, where it all comes from. I don't believe man is the supreme being. I really don't. We're going to get back to Philip Schneider in a few minutes. I just want to cut to the chase here just for you guys because what he did was unbelievable. He worked for the government. He worked at Area 51 or Groom Lake. What he saw, he ended up quitting the government and went out on his own as basically a whistleblower, or to let the public know what's really going on and what the real agenda is. So I'm going to leave you with that for now, and we'll get back to Phil Schneider momentarily, but we're going to move on to David Adair. He has a very interesting story as well. David Adair was at Groom Lake and Area 51 because he built a rocket engine. And you'll know more about that in a bit. Before I forget, I want you to hear what one former President of the United States has to say about UFOs. And then we'll get on with David Adair.
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in and he did check and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
I was 13 years old when I built my first rocket, and it left the backyard at about 3,500 miles an hour.
David Adair for part 2 of this interview.
Well, the DC-9 pulled to a stop, tail dropped down, they came off the back, and all these guys in black suits, white shirts, skinny little black ties, and mirror sunglasses. So now they got Pislin and me at Groom Lake, and they said, we need to go look at something. That's why you're here. The entire floor of this hangar was an elevator.
Even presidents of the United States are only told so much.
In 1960, John F. Kennedy becomes the 35th President of the United States. The extent to which Kennedy quietly deals with the danger that Eisenhower had vaguely described in his farewell address. Danger that some say related to government secrets about UFO technology, Area 51. And perhaps the most chilling page of the burned memo states, when conditions become non-conducive for growth in our environment and Washington cannot be influenced any further, the weather is lacking any precipitation. It should be wet.
That's an old Soviet phrase. Wet work means that's when you kill people covertly.
Well, we got in the hangar. I figured we were about 200 feet down, and we flushed out on the floor, and you looked straight ahead. And it was just this monstrous cavern shape. It was a rainbow-shaped roof.
In July 1970, I went to Ohio State University with my science teacher. July 1969. And this little frail guy.
Acknowledged leader in black hole theory is Stephen Hawking. He and another British theorist, Roger Penrose, laid down the basic principles 10 years ago.
And I walked in, I saw these equations on the walls, and I went, who's messing with my work? You know, and the little guy stands up, indeed. I went, he says, it's his work. And I went, yeah, oh, I guess it is. Besides, it's not going to work down on that side anyhow, pointing to that part of the room on a chalkboard. And he goes, how so? I said, well, walk over and, started erasing it. Wait, it works like this. So he looks at it, and then he goes, how do you validate that? I go, rocket engine. And he's looking at the equation, his back is to me, and he goes, how do you get all your information? I went, comes in dreams every night consecutively. So he drops his chalk. And he turns around, and I figure, end of conversation, good. I'm busy, I need to go home anyhow. I start to head for a door, and he goes, wait a minute. He goes, we dream on the same wavelength. All my stuff comes to me in dreams. Therefore, we are brothers, have a seat.
So, hey, it happens, Some people have dreams, and it comes true. So, a lot here.
Supposedly the aliens had come in and exchanged technology.
You're going to hear something from John Lear.
So my guest again this week is UFO researcher, former state Senate candidate, and award-winning pilot John Lear. You believe in part that the movies E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind were not entirely just the creative products of some Hollywood director, that maybe there's more to that. Why don't you explain?
They were carefully guided by representatives from MJ-12. Who is this organization that is in charge of the cover-up, in order to get us ready for the release of the information that there are indeed aliens.
And I realized, man, I ain't nowhere. I had an electromagnetic fusion containment engine just successfully launched, landed up on the desert floor above us. I thought, yeah, I felt kind of smug about that. You know, hey, I did pretty good for it. Being a teenager and all, and it worked. But this thing was over 60 feet long. It was an electromagnetic fusion containment engine. And you can tell by the way they're shaped and designed. There were steps to the stage, and I said, can I go up and look at it? So I go up the stairs and go up to the thing. But this is where it starts getting weird, if it ain't weird enough already. It looked like meat instead of metal. But you reach down and touch it, it's metal.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm the founder of the Disclosure Project. I'm an emergency doctor, retired now, emergency medicine and trauma. I have been working in this area for about 33 years as a volunteer and as a provider of information to people in the United States government. You're seeing behind me a moment ago this event 22 years ago on May 9th, 2001. At that event, there were 22 folks who came forward, and that information is all on our website and on YouTube. And those were folks who actually, some of them, who handled extraterrestrial bodies called EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities, handled craft, were on retrieval teams.
This video is pretty long, but there's some things in here I never knew about. It's a mind blower.
All kinds of witnesses. And I do want to thank every one of the people here who made this happen, all these military whistleblowers coming forward. So I want to introduce someone I've gotten to know and subsequently served as a special project director at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Please welcome my friend and hero of our country, Colonel Peckert.
The things I want to share are first just a little bit of historical information quickly. You know the name Kelly Johnson. Kelly Johnson and the gentleman, Ben Rich, who succeeded him, I got to know very well. I've got a 1953 UFO report signed by Kelly Johnson and his engineers, and in that same UFO thing, about 4 hours later, it appears over his house. And Dr. Greer has a letter that Kelly Johnson sent to the National Director of Intelligence saying, this is real, this needs to be investigated. These are the two airplanes that I flew that had UFO encounters. GCI sites. These are radar sites that vector in the fighters to the people that are intercepting you. What happens next is that I get an alert from 3 GCI sites and the early foreman AWACS that I've got traffic that is a fast mover near Mach 1 coming out of North Vietnam, Laos, heading for me in orbit. That concerns me because my armed escort isn't there. Now I'm completing about halfway down this next pathway, and they tell me, oh, don't worry, that target is above 70,000 feet, and you know it can't get at you at this point. So I'm a little relieved, but then I finally get to see it, and it's on a wavelength of light that I've only seen one other place, and that is in a nuclear pile on an active nuclear power generation, and it's called Teller light. It is very unique, very white, very, very bright. So we look up, and it's an 11 o'clock, and over here off my left shoulder about 10 o'clock. My backseater is stumbling to make their emergency detection systems and our defensive systems active. We watch this thing, and it's way above there, and I'm a little relieved, until all of a sudden, through the mid-term of the orbit, it comes from 70,000 feet down to 12,500 feet in 2 seconds. So my backseater and I agree, hey, this is important. We can see this. We need to document it. I go to Afterburner, and we accelerate very quickly through Mach 1, go up to about Mach 1.2, and I close to within 3 nautical miles of this UFO. And we've got it now on our radar. We've got it pegged. The guy in the back seat can't see it on his display because that sensor's pointing down. So I pitch up, do a supersonic climb up, and he says, we got it, we got it, we got it. That white light at 3 miles goes out of sight within less than 2 seconds.
Bob Lazar claimed to have worked on reverse engineering alien spacecraft at a secret site near Area 51, known as S4. His assertions, particularly about the existence and use of element 115, moscovium, as a power source for these crafts. Scientists had long predicted the existence of element 115.
There were almost identical UFO events at 2 of the Minuteman ICBM locations.
My name is Robert Jameson. I was a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. One of my jobs was to, if a missile goes off alert for any reason, is to go out and restart it.
We had Minuteman I missiles, and that's what 800 kiloton weapon. And just for reference, the weapons that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were 20 kilotons.
Ability is helping to keep the peace. We have a policy of mutually assured destruction. It would be suicide for us or our potential adversaries to launch a nuclear attack unless they could disable that capability in that system. Then they could conceivably decapitate the United States, destroy the Capitol without fear of a retaliatory response, and change the global balance of power.
Our location was 60 feet underground.
We were very well protected.
It was a concrete steel reinforced capsule.
And this capsule was sitting below what we called the launch control facility.
We had 6 security guards topside. They had the responsibility for making sure there was nobody trying to break in.
I traveled to base to attend the pre-departure crew briefing. After the briefing, several missile crews came up to me and said, "Did you hear what happened overnight?"
Sometime in the evening hours, I get up a call from the main guard upstairs. He tells me that there are strange lights flying over the facility. They're looking at reddish-orange, glowing, pulsating light. It's hovering just above the front gate.
And he pointed with his arms, and he says it was right out there, hovering, motionless and without sound.
He did think that there was a solid object within the light, sort of oval-shaped. I kind of dismissed it. I even said, "You mean like UFOs?" and kind of laughed at him, and he said, "Well, they're not airplanes, sir." About 5 minutes later, he calls back, and he's screaming into the phone. Now, he's very frightened. He's babbling. He said he's got all the guards out there with their weapons drawn. They wanted orders on what to do. I told him, make sure nothing enters the fenced area. When I hung up the phone, I thought we were under attack. By who or what, I had no idea. And then we get bells and whistles going off at our control panel, and we could see the lights going from green to red all across the board, meaning the missiles were inoperable now.
Well, thank you all for being here. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this. In 2009, my unit, which was most degraded infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quetzana. Which we were attached to the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which conducts maritime operations all throughout Southeast Asia, in conjunction with the 7th Naval Fleet, which houses one landing helo deck, or LHD, among LPDs, which is what I was on, called a USS Denver. Ironically, that's where I'm from, so kind of felt like home. Now, during that operation in Quetzana in the Philippines, they had actually heard that a tsunami and earthquake hit the western part of Sumatra, which is western Indonesia, Padang City more specifically. Out of all the ships in the 7th Fleet, the ship I was on was the only one that was routed to that location, which was oddly strange, but then again, this is my first humanitarian operation, so I don't know the logistics of it, but if the skipper of the ship would probably know that information. So this happened September 30th. We ended up getting called and dropped anchor around October 8th. We are briefed in the ward room, which is the officers' mess, where they eat like their cafeteria per se. We're briefed that there is some of President Obama's family members that are present on either in the city or somewhere near there. They had a SEAL platoon that was ready to go to retrieve those people. Us knowing well that Indonesia is also the 2nd largest terrorist capital where they train these guys, and they'll send them up to whatever theater of operation where anybody wants a piece of the United States, they ship them up to go handle it. So we know that well, and we were then briefed that we were going to be armed during this operation, just to also provide security for the transportation coming to basically drop off medical supplies, sheltering items, food, purified water, things like that. So they ended up selecting certain Marines to go ahead and do this. We were only in sticks of six Marines, so it had NCOs on top of other Marines to help with that. So we again boarded CH-53 Super Stallions, which are gigantic helicopters that are roughly 100 feet long. I love the design of them. It's my personal favorite. But we ended up boarding this on the ship, and we flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different through satellite imagery that I've recently seen. Back then is a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it, basically the worst kind of scenario you could ever see. From then, once we touched down on this landing strip, it took probably about 2 minutes. And then again, the pilots got radio confirmation to go ahead and drop us into certain parts. So we again dropped to a hasty LZ, which took probably about 6-7 minutes to fly to from that position. And we dropped to a hasty LZ. We got off the bird, and what we were instructed to do at that point through the briefing was to push to a high ground at least to get better observation. As a Marine, the tactical advantage that you get from having a observation from a top point is you see everything clearly. You could also coordinate from there. At that time, we had did a tactical column, which we were able to get eyes on pretty much everything, especially with 6 Marines, so we have the effective communication at that point. If we need to engage, we can properly do it within the amount of ammunition we've got, as well as the weapons that we got, which were only M16A4s. So at that point, we decided to push forward. We trekked up about 300 meters. At this time, I have a Panasonic camera that has the ability to take photographs. It has a ability to take videos, obviously. When we got to this high point, I was taking video camera, and I had actually turned to the north, which just kind of slopes down. And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that. Vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray, as well as a dark matte black. So in between, that's what it kept, and it was very smooth. You can see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft.
Okay, I'm going to summarize it for you, wrap it up, because I know it's been long.
You used to work at Area 51.
Well, we want to
Careful.
be accurate.
Okay.
Area S4.
S4, okay.
It's about 15 miles south of Area 51. Before that, I had worked at Los Alamos National Labs in New Mexico.
Did they give you any sort of job description of what you were applying for?
They said it was for... I can't remember exactly what they did. This was a long time ago, but I think it was advanced propulsion.
Who among us has not heard about an alleged UFO cover-up?
And according to him, the base does, in fact, hold extraterrestrial spacecraft.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Here was someone who claimed to have worked at Area 51, back engineering alien technology.
So once again, you can believe what you want. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.